Hidden Object Guru here with a reaction video. I just did my first one of these a couple of days ago, and in a move that was so tragically narcissistic that someone should have intervened, I was reacting to one of my own videos, which isn't great. So now what I've decided to do is, since I saw this video with, like, the most insane title I've ever seen, I thought, hey, I'll go and react to that. Now, you've already probably seen in the title of this what it is, but I'll just go into it now. Some guy made a video, the title of which is, Player 1 Did Nothing Wrong. Obviously, this is about Squid Game. I love Squid Game. Obviously, Player 1's a monster, so let's see what this guy's arguments are. Maybe he can convince me. I profoundly doubt it. And you know what? This whole time, I've been assuming it's a guy and a dude. It's a channel called Think Story, but I actually have no idea. So, we're going to hear a voice. It's possible I'm wrong, like 2 seconds after me pressing play.
Spoiler warning ahead for Squid Game.
Okay, no, it's a guy. That's fine. I was worried there for a second. That would have been embarrassing. All right, let's do this.
Season 1. He's everyone.
Well, actually, yeah, 100%. Two things. A, this is all going to be spoilers, obviously. Two, it's entirely possible that at the end of my reaction video, the guy's going to end with saying, "Of course I'm joking. Ilnam's a monster." And again, I will have wasted 20 minutes of all of our time. So hopefully that's not how it ends. It's entirely possible. Let's do this.
One's favorite Gambu, Player 1, Ilnam. But behind that old, seemingly innocent facade is what many have argued is a criminal mastermind. But I'm here to tell you,
many have argued? He made a death game? Yes, he's literally a criminal mastermind. He masterminds an illegal crime ring. Jesus. Sorry. He's off to a bad start.
Don't believe those lies. Player 1 did nothing wrong. In this video, I'll be laying out the case for why Ilnam's bad rap is unwarranted and how his decisions throughout the game, even ones that lead to murder, are actually benevolent. But before we...
None of them, okay. None of them can conceivably referred to as benevolent. Jesus. Okay, I'm judging this guy before I'd heard any of the arguments.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and if you need a refresher on the show, check out my Squid Game ending.
His channel is called Think Story. If you want to go subscribe to him, and I would encourage that, because I'm going to be a jerk for the next 20 minutes. So go and subscribe to Think Story. I assume he doesn't need my help.
Explained. I should first mention that my argument here isn't that Ilnam is perfect. Far from it. Every human is flawed, and this is represented throughout our colorful cast of characters.
Okay, let's just keep going.
Song-woo is arguably the worst of the lot, lying about
No, number one's the worst of the lot.
One of the games in advance, tricking Ali with a fake bag of rocks resulting in his death, and the icing on the cake, throwing someone off the glass bridge. Hell, even Gyeon exploits Ilnam's quote-unquote dementia to avoid defeat in the marble game. What I'm getting at here is that Ilnam is far from the most evil character on the show. In fact, he shows a lot of remorse and compassion, but more on that in a bit. As we find out in the series' final episode, Player 1 is the founder of Squid Game, a game in which contestants battle for their lives for prize money. And here is the first reason Ilnam did nothing wrong. The games are voluntary. Unlike similar death-style games like Battle Royale, Alice in Borderland, or even the Hunger Games, contestants are given the opportunity not to play. We see this with Gyeon, who's given a...
Okay, here's where the guy's completely wrong, okay? And I'll tell you why he's completely wrong right from the start. I'm going to ask you a question about Squid Game. Why does anyone have to die? I just put a pause there like you were going to answer me. But my point is, if a millionaire wanted to compete with 500 people, sorry, I said millionaire, billionaire, wanted 500 people to compete, and then he goes and competes too, to see who gets X amount of money. Why does anyone have to die doing that? Couldn't the giant doll shoot paintballs? And anyone gets hit by a paintball is sent home with nothing again? Couldn't, if you broke the cookie, I say cookie, it's a candy, couldn't you just get sent home with nothing? Couldn't you be playing tug of war over a 4-foot drop instead of a 50-foot drop? Same thing with the glass plates, so that you probably wouldn't do the glass plates. Right? Like, none of these games have to involve death. The characters are choosing to, like, you could get 500 people to humiliate themselves at the chance of winning $30 million. Right? Easily. He wants people to do it at the cost of their lives. That's what before any of this starts, before any of the stuff he does in the games, because it's all unethical, but before any of the stuff starts in the game, he's already done something monstrously unethical by deciding to play a death game at all. So that's just day one, he's a monster. Because again, this didn't have to be a death game. You could have all the poor people competitions you want. All of the, let's face it, poor fight club. Like poor people fight club. You can do that all you want without having to mass murder people. But he chose to mass murder people because of his contempt for the poor. I'm going to get into why he has contempt for the poor. Like, I assume I'll have a chance to do that later based on this guy's thing, because I'm not going to just sit here for 10 minutes and explaining Ilnam's psychology.
A card to enter. He doesn't have to go. He does it on his own free will. Even when he gets to the games, he signs a waiver, which is...
Oh my god. Okay, so this guy... Okay,
juxtaposed to the one he signed under duress from a thug he owed money to in episode 1.
See, that's
and
a
the
good
other
point.
Contestants did everything voluntarily. I'll also address the argument they did.
Okay. They did do everything voluntarily. But did they? They were all under such crushing debt that their only choice was to risk dying to get out of it. How on earth is that voluntary? Like, your main character, 456, if he doesn't get this money, some gangsters are going to cut out his organs. They're going to take a kidney and an eye. And if he's lucky, he'll survive. I know it's all completely legal because he signed a contract, but that's the point. No one who wasn't in the most desperate possible situation would sign a contract of them taking your kidney and your eye. And let's face it, you might die in the surgery. These are criminals.
Didn't know they might die in the first game later on in the video. And if this wasn't enough, there's rule number 3. Contestants...
Oh, he's going to address it later in the video. Well, that's fine then. The fact that fully half of the contestants get shot to death when they didn't know they were going to playing a death game. Oh no, that's fine. He'll explain that later in the video. Jeez.
Can choose to end the games if the majority of players agree. Ilnam actually becomes the deciding vote in ending the game. If he was some bloodthirsty maniac, he would never have voted to end it. That's...
Oh my... Okay, so this guy just doesn't understand... I mean, again, it's probably that he's just pretending not to understand his psychology. I'll just get into it now. Ilnam, at the end of his life, has nothing. He is a miserable, pathetic person. All he has is his financial success. And he looks back at life and all of the people he ruined to get that financial success. And he has two choices. See himself as a monster and a villain, or see everyone he ruined as completely contemptible and beneath pity and having no reason to live. That's why he's the one who ends the game. Because he wants to prove to himself that everybody's going to come back. And he knows they're going to come back because he has created life circumstances for them that are so terrible that this is literally their only option. And he's not the only one creating them, but we'll get into that.
Because Ilnam has an unspoken moral code about how the game should be run, who should be able to compete, and, when it comes to him as a player, minimally affecting the outcome.
That's not true at all. He doesn't have a code. He cheats in all of the games. Every single one. But we'll get into it. Okay, I can't prove he cheats in the candy, but he cheats in the rest of the games. Just putting that out there. 100%, he cheats in all the other games.
Games contestants aren't chosen at random. Ilnam actually wants those who need the money to participate. In fact, there is a screening process of sorts done through men like this guy, who we see engage Gion in a game of Dachi. This ensures contestants who take part really need that money. And the prize money, along with how it is distributed, is equally noble. As we learn in episode 2, the total prize pool is 45.6 billion won, or roughly $38.5 million US.
Okay,
that's
more money than I thought it was, but that's not the point.
Enough to change someone's life, and no matter the outcome of the game, money will be given out. If, for example, the contestants decide to end the game, the families of the deceased will be given 100 million won. Ilnam doesn't have to do that, but he does, even though these contestants voluntarily chose to be here. Players are even...
He doesn't have to... Oh, God. Okay, so, first off, yeah, $35 million is enough to change somebody's life. For the better, presumably, although, honestly, look at lottery winners, not always. But you know what? The $80,000 you get for leaving, I assume 100 million won, if 45. Anyway, $90,000 would also change most of these people's lives for the better. Some of them need a lot more than that, but it would help them quite a bit. And he could give, again, this man is probably the richest man in Korea. He has functionally unlimited money. He could give the money to the dead people's families either way. He's choosing not to. Okay? Because again, he wants to prove that people are worthless and will keep fighting over the money to save themselves. But he's rigged it, right? So if you want to give the money to the dead people's families, and they could all use that $80,000, I'm sure. But if you want to give it, you have to leave with nothing. But you're only playing the game because the risk of death isn't as scary as your life was out there. So who on earth, when they find out what the real stakes are, is going to say, oh yeah, no, I'll just go back to my horrible life where gangsters are about to cut out my organs, but I'll be satisfied in the knowledge that some dead guy's family gets $80,000. Of course not. Everything about this is structured to ensure participation. And again, I love how this guy in the video says he wants to make sure it's people who really need it, as if, like, this is an episode of Extreme Home Makeover? Like he's trying to help people? No, he's going to the desperate because they're the people who are willing to play. Not because he thinks he can make their life better, but because only someone that desperate would ever be willing to play this game.
Even given the chance to come back to the games,
which again, they don't know is a death game when they sign up for it.
Knowing it could result in their deaths. Episode 2 is titled Hell.
Yeah.
And shows us the backstory of several of these characters. For them, life in the outside world is more of a hell than playing the actual...
It's not really the backstory. You're showing the present day, but they talk about their histories. You're not shown the backstory. You're told... Anyway, you know what?
Game. Il-nam is merely giving them an opportunity under their own volition to change the course of their lives in a world which has been so unfair to them. But what sets Il-nam apart is that he actually plays the game. He puts his own...
He doesn't. He doesn't play the game. He doesn't put his own life at risk.
Own life at risk in order to play. Now, I've seen a few articles about how Il-nam supposedly had the doll in the red light green light game programmed so that it wouldn't kill him. I don't believe this for a few reasons. I went back and watched the scene multiple times, and you can clearly see that Il-nam does get scanned, and there are no indications that he moves while on red light, which would have resulted in his death. But I think the point at which Il-nam could have easily died...
Okay, so first off, even if it wasn't programmed to not shoot him, I assume it was programmed to not shoot him, he has an advantage over the rest of the players. Because he knows that it's a death game going in. And again, it's his childhood obsession with red light, green light that made him want to play it. Also, because it's his game, he knows the song, and he knows when it's going to start and stop. That's how he's able to rush out ahead of everybody. Everyone else has to wonder when the song is going to start and stop. But he just bounds ahead of everybody. And we, when first watching, you're supposed to think, oh yeah, of course, he's an old man and he's a little crazy and he's senile and he's dying, so it doesn't matter to him. He's just playing and loving it as a child. And he is. But he's cheating. Because he knows when the song is going to start and stop. That's the only way he could conceivably race as far ahead of everyone as he does. That's how he plays so well. Anyway, let's keep going.
Was the tug-of-war game. His team was clearly outmatched in strength, and even with his technique they used to win the game, they barely win. If Il-nam was rigging these games to win, this was definitely not the play. But for
Oh, okay, well, this guy, he doesn't know that Il-nam isn't chained to the... He's not chained to the rope, but hilariously, he's actually showing a video that proves it. So, if you look here, you can see that how the shackles work are, there is a shackle, right, that chains two of your wrists together, and then one of the wrists is chained to the rope with a big silver padlock. Now I'm going to rewind so you can see this. Okay.
Clearly outmatched in strength, and even with his technique they used to win the game, they barely win.
Watch.
If Il-nam was rigging these games to...
Alright, so, I was about to, click on the screen, but you can't see my mouse. Anyway, look at 276's right wrist here. You can see a big silver padlock. I'm circling it with my mouse, like you can see that. A big silver padlock, right, hooking that chain to his wrist and to this thing, right? So if he started to lose, and I mean, this would take some agility, I can't guarantee. I scrolled down as if that's where the video was. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this at 2 a.m. Anyway, point is, look at his wrist.
Was definitely not the play, but
look at that. That's the shackle that's supposed to be chained to the rope. But it's not. There is no big silver metal shackle on his arm. At any point, he can let go of the rope, slip his wrists out likely, or maybe just step away. I don't know exactly how the rope works, but he doesn't have the shackle. He was in no danger of losing. That's the key part.
But for Ilnam, it's not about winning. He actually exits the game after faking his death in episode 6. In episode 3, Ilnam...
And that's the key part I want to point out here. Ilnam plays up until he can no longer have a way out. So even if he could have gotten shot in red light, he gets a huge advantage. 2, that's 1. 2, in the candy game, I am sure that either, I mean, I have no proof for this, but he definitely does pick the second easiest shape. And you can say, well, wouldn't circle be the second easiest shape? No, because it's easier to cut. Yeah, you have to do a little more cutting with the star, but it's way easier to cut in straight lines than it is curves. That's just how these cookies work. That's why triangle is the easiest, because it's just 3 straight lines. The star has 10 straight lines, but it's still just straight lines. And again, it's a chunkier, stronger shape, and that's why the umbrella is the worst, because it's got a super thin shape and nothing but curves. Just curve, 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 and then a super thin stick. It's ridiculously difficult. But he picks a star, which is the second easiest. And again, either A, right? He was handed one that was basically, pre-cut out or ready to go. Or B, the guards were under orders not to shoot him. Because I want to point out this, right? They shoot the doctor and the guys he was working with because of the offensive idea that anyone could have an advantage in the game. And the only advantage the doctor had was knowing which games were going to get played. That's the only advantage he had in the whole Squid Game experience. Ilnam also knows all of the games that are being played. He is cheating every bit as much as the doctor was, and the doctor got executed for cheating, is my point. So even if he's actually playing the games, I would argue he's not. The chains prove that he's not. But even if he's not actually playing the game, he is cheating just as much as the doctor is. And the doctor got executed for cheating. So there you go. I mean, you can say he also got executed for being an organ harvester, but in the narrative of the show, they say he's killed for trying to have an unfair advantage in the game. But Ilnam is one big unfair advantage as a person.
Thanks Gion for showing him the licking technique in the honeycomb challenge. Plus, Ilnam could have chosen the easy triangle shape, but went with the star. This is a guy who isn't afraid of a challenge. But perhaps the strongest evidence that he didn't rig the red light, green light game is that it would take the fun out of it. On his deathbed, Ilnam talks about the reason for both starting the games and participating in them. Fun. As an extremely rich man, Ilnam felt that nothing in life was fun anymore.
The fun is watching all the people, is manipulating the people around you. It's what he's been doing his whole life.
No challenge, no fight, nothing. If he wanted something, he could easily buy it. He has this great line where he says the one thing that extremely poor and extremely rich people have in common is that for both of them, life is not fun. If Ilnam rigged the games, it would take away that fun. There's no fun in winning a game you know you're going to win. Also, if there was no chance of death for him, Ilnam would have risked exposing himself to the other players. There are also multiple...
How? How would he have risked exposing himself to the other players? Like, he would have to be a moron in red light, green light to charge when the light is red. In the cookie game, honeycomb game, whatever, no one saw what each other's shapes looked like, so no one would know if he cheated. He probably didn't in that one, but honestly, if he had failed, they wouldn't have shot him. He's their boss. And we know that's how we know they're forbidden to shoot him because we watched them not shoot him later in the episode. He was never and again, in the tug of war, we know he cheated.
Multiple times in the show where the front man espouses the virtues of having fair and equal games. So when it's discovered that one of the contestants has been given secret information about the upcoming game, that player is eliminated. During episode 4, it is Ilnam who stops the riot from killing everyone in the dormitory. While this massacre is...
The riot was never going to kill everyone in the dormitory. That's insane.
Going on, the soldiers merely wait for instructions, letting the killing continue. But it's only when Ilnam screams out for the killing to stop that Frontman sends in the army. I personally think this is because Ilnam believes this is not what the games are about. We can see him visibly upset in the aftermath. He even agrees to keep night watch for his team in the aftermath should another attack happen. Ilnam also forges a relationship with
Not what the games are about. Are you insane? Okay, so we'll talk about this later. the riot was part of the game. You brought in criminals to play your game. And then they specifically set up a situation, right? They specifically set up a situation where the food was shorted, which would lead to a fight in the hopes that somebody get killed, and then everybody in the room would find out that if somebody got killed outside the games, their money still got added to the pot. That's why the food was shorted. That's why they were trying to create a situation to lead to a fight to the death so that they could find that out to lead to a riot. Because, spoiler alert, they want there to be a small number of players towards the end of the game. That's the whole point. It's like, I'm actually kind of blown away at how much this guy is missing. Because, spoiler alert, like, look at a game. So game 2 is the candy game, right? And a bunch of people die in that. Basically, everybody with the umbrella gets killed. So that's a quarter of the players. Ish. Right? And then in the but then they still have to have the riots right after the candy game, isn't it? Oh, now I'm blanking on this. This is very embarrassing. Did 120 people get there? No, it is, because there's only 80 players left for it's before that, because there's only 80 players left for the tug of war. They want to get it down to more manageable numbers. And I think the key part is, he arranged your
he probably should have done if he
here.
genuinely wanted to see these players killed. In episode 2, when they're in the outside world, Ilnam happens to show up where Giyun is and even shares a pack of noodles.
Happens to show up, Jesus.
Giyun, something he probably shouldn't have done if he genuinely Aftermath. He even agrees to keep night watch for his team in the Aftermath should another attack happen. Ilnam also forges a relationship with Giyun, something he probably shouldn't have done if he genuinely wanted to see these players killed. In episode
He knows he's gonna let 456 win. What are you talking about? He knows he's gonna let 456 win, and by forming a bond with him, he emotionally tortures 456. He is incredibly cruel to 456. And yeah, I think part of him is fond of 456 because that explains what happens at the end of the game, but we'll talk about that later. But it's like, he forms a bond with him to make it more painful when 456 betrays him. That's why, like, he pretends to have dementia so that 456 will betray him and reveal himself to be a monster. Because again, Ilnam's whole game is proving that everyone is just as monstrous as he is. Like, the Squid Game itself isn't just telling the story of his childhood, although all of the games and the fact that it's based on his neighborhood say that. It's also based on telling the story of capitalism and how he made all of his money by screwing everybody over. Like, does this guy not understand that Ilnam is a moneylender? Like, he makes all of his money by giving, loans to people at the very ragged edge of falling off at just cruelly usurious rates. That's how he made all of his money. By looking at people who were suffering and then kicking them when they were down. So, no, he's not being nice when he befriends 456. He is being even more brutally cruel. That's his whole thing.
Episode 2, when they're in the outside world, Ilnam happens to show up where Giyun is and even shares a pack of noodles with him. What a sweetheart. And 2 episodes later, Ilnam shows compassion while Giyun recounts the story of his friend at the car plant being murdered by police. What I'm getting at here is that Ilnam...
And again, don't gloss over that. Strikers got murdered. And then they all lost their union jobs, and they had to take out loans from literally player 1 or people like him.
Isn't the soulless character that a show like this could have easily portrayed him as. There is humanity to him, and this is shaped by a moral code that acts as the backbone to the games. But the connection between these two...
What is again, he cheats at every game. There's no moral code. The moral code of capitalism is that the people at the top, the capitalists, get to change the rules whenever they want. This literally happens in the Stepping Stones game. It looks like people are going to win, so they just change the rules. There's nothing fair about the game. And again, even if he wasn't cheating, which he obviously was, even if he wasn't, just knowing what all the games were gives him the very unfair advantage that no one is supposed to have.
Players really shines in episode 6, Gambu, a Korean slang word roughly meaning friendship. Il-nam ends up giving his player jacket to Gi-yeon after Gi-yeon gave his own to cover up his pants. He lets Gi-yeon win the marble game even though Gi-yeon tried to exploit his dementia. In essence,
He didn't actually have dementia. This is what he wanted. He wanted Gi-yeon to be racked with shame and guilt. Because he's a monster.
Il-nam forgives him here, a forgiveness and compassion given to Gi-yeon based on the kindness he showed him throughout the series and for, quote, giving him a good experience.
That's true. That part is true. He forgives him and he shakes on it because Gi-yeon, excoriating himself. He found this guy who was always kind to him, who always looked out for the old man, who saw a weak man, right? And did everything he could to help him until the moment that helping the old man was going to cost him his own life. And then, instead of just placidly accepting his fate, he goes out of his way to tell Gi-yeon everything about his childhood, to humanize himself further, and then makes him cheat, right? Cheat a dying old man to save his own life, knowing that it's going to fill him with guilt. And then at the end of it, as a kicker, he basically said, I always knew you were cheating, but you deserve this more than I do. There you go.
The last episode, however, is where we get the most insight into who Il-nam really is. This provides the backstory for why he created the games and additional insight into his worldview. Il-nam believes we make our own choices, just like the drunk man outside who chose to drink and nearly kills himself in the cold. He so believes that humanity is not good that he bets Gi-yeon his life that no one will help the drunk man. And this, in my opinion, is his biggest flaw. He simply has a misguided view of humanity. It's partially why he doesn't feel any guilt for the thousands of contestants killed over the years. They chose to be there. They chose money over life. So who is really to blame in this twisted game? The man who created it or the contestants who willfully choose?
The man who created it. Because, and this is what this guy is missing. They're not choosing money over life. In a capitalist system, money is life. If you can't afford a place to live, you end up like the homeless guy. If you can't afford food, you starve to death. If you can't afford medical treatment, like Gi-hyun's mother, you die lying in your mattress in your small, depressing apartment. That she dies because there's no money for her. Money is life under capitalism. Squid Game, the games, are just more honest about it. That's the thing.
To play it. Should the drunk man blame the alcohol or himself for choosing to drink it? You can see how it gets a bit more complex here. There's also this beautiful irony between Il-nam and the drunk man, a man who is literally sitting and dying, juxtaposed with what Il-nam says in episode 2.
이렇게 죽을 날만 기다리다가
Now, the main argument of this video is that Il-nam did nothing wrong, and you could say that he is the one responsible for all these deaths, but at the end of the day, the contestants voluntarily chose to take that risk. And you might say, well, they didn't know they'd die in the first round, but they were expressly told that if they follow the rules, they would not be harmed. So those who didn't follow the rules, i.e. moved during the red light game, were killed, and any liability toward Il-nam would be negated because of the player consent forms.
It would not be negated. You literally can't sign away your own life. You can't sign a contract that says someone is allowed to kill you for money. This isn't the purge. It's literally not legal to sign a contract saying Bill is allowed to kill me as long as he gives my family $1 million. Even if you sign the contract, even if Bill co-signs, if you have four notary publics witness that you both signed it and did a psychological exam on you to make sure you were of sound mind and body, right? Before you signed it. Even after all of that, guess what? Bill's still a murderer. Bill still murdered you.
A consent form which clearly states in Rule 2 that players who refuse to play will be eliminated. Any of the contestants could have specifically asked what eliminated meant, but none of them do. The real gray areas here that I'm sure...
Why would anyone suspect they were going to get murdered? Oh no, it's their fault for not knowing that they were in the middle of a Saw movie. Jesus. This is again... This is bonkers bad morality this guy is offering. Wow, his worldview is warped.
I'm going to hear about in the comments will likely fall on our own subjective opinions on what is right and wrong. And that's the...
No, it's just subjective opinions. about what's right and wrong. Obviously, it's just completely subjective whether it's okay to murder 499 people. I know it's 455 people. I just wanted to round up to the 5. You know what? Not important what I was trying to do there. This is crazy dumb. Dumb and, again, slightly psychopathic? I mean, is it too far to say that it's slightly psychopathic? You can't sign away your life like this. You just can't. And again, this is the key part. This is how you know he's a bad guy. This is how you know he's a monster. So set aside the cheating, right? Set aside, like, all of the cheating he does. And we can debate how much cheating he does. We can debate how much cheating there is. I would probably think that he cheats more than this guy does. But what this guy doesn't seem to understand, again, and I'll repeat this one more time, just knowing what games are going to be played is cheating. That's why the doctor is killed. The frontman specifically says so. So by the game's rules and the frontman's rules, player 1 is cheating and deserves to be executed. Okay? So full stop. End of conversation. We don't even have to get into how much all the other ways he's cheating, which I showed you the screenshot. He definitely is. What gets me here is, and what this guy's not seeing, right, is that as a moneylender, player 001, Ilnam, has created the conditions that people are so impoverished for, so that they will be forced to play the game. He keeps people immiserated so that there will be contestants for him to torture. How can he have done nothing wrong? Again, he's a moneylender. He is, again, I'm not going to get into the Bible, but we all know what Jesus did when he saw moneylenders, right? Like, they are the lowest of the low. Okay, and now we're going to get into Merchant of Venice. But that's a whole other conversation. Not going to get into a whole Shakespeare thing here. You know what? There's plenty of theses about anti-Semitism in Shakespeare that we can talk about later. But let's just say that moneylending isn't a great profession and move forward from that. Beyond that, though, like, remember that moneylenders have access to every part of a person's life. In Squid Game, we see that, like, they have dossiers on all of the players. And you'll be like, wow, are they doing a massive surveillance organization? Are they in bed with the cops and bribing people for these people's files? No. They're moneylenders. If you apply for a loan, you have to tell them everything about yourself. That's what credit scores are for. That's what, that's what the elaborate files you have to put out. All of these people, in taking out loans at one time or another, got on the radar of the moneylender organizations, and that's how they're picking victims. They're picking the poorest and most desperate of their own clients. They are invested in keeping the world as horrible as it is, so that there will always be peasants and victims to play their game. So yes, he's a monster in every part of his life, up to the game, and in the game, he's an even worse monster. Like, every part of his life up to starting the game, he was a terrible person. And the game just makes him an even more terrible person. So, final notes, because this guy's wrapping up. So
Fun of these types of videos. One man's right is the other man's wrong. But I want to hear what you think. Am I totally off here and Ilnam is evil incarnate, or is there a different...
See, again, look at this.
And that's the fun of these types of videos.
He literally knows exactly when it's going to stop.
But I want to hear what you think. Am I totally off here and Ilnam is evil incarnate, or is there a different way of looking at things? Remember, all of you are...
Again, and, I mean, he's trying to convince people to run forward with him, so I get it, but he knows when the song is going to start and stop before it starts and stops. That's how he's able to do that. The only reason he isn't the first to cross the line is because he's not that fast a runner, because he's an 80-year-old man.
You are my Gambu, and please be kind to each other in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until...
Okay, so that's that. So yeah, final thoughts. At his core, Ilnam is a monstrous, corrupt individual, Dadoy. But what's fascinating about this is, and I'm just going to go in a little bit of the ending here, and then we'll go. What's fascinating about the end of this is, he gets mad at Gi-hyun for not becoming a capitalist at the end of the game. right? Because the point of the games is to show you the arc of capitalism. It's the story of how Ilnam made his money, right? So it starts off with game 1, under capitalism, everyone has to follow arbitrary rules. Game 2, we pretend that everybody's equal and it's a meritocracy, but everybody starts playing the game with a different set of advantages. And spoiler alert, the people born lucky tend to win the game. And that's why all the things are different shapes, because some people just get lucky. Part 3, you're teaching it's fine to team up with people, but you can only win if somebody loses, so you can't team up with everybody. 4 is about teaching us that if you want to give up, that if game 4, your Gagambu, marbles, is teaching us that if you want to succeed, if you want the money, you have to give up all human relationships. He created a game where people will naturally choose the person they trust the most and then have to murder them. Because, again, he's lost contact with his own family and all of his friends and everyone because money was more important. Game 5, well, that's easy enough to see, which is there is no, innovation doesn't help you succeed in capitalism. What helps you succeed in capitalism is waiting for somebody else to do all the work, and then once at some point they fail, you just step in and finish the job. By the way, that's why he made sure, first by wetting himself, or maybe some people say he just poured water on his pants, and then looked and hid in the corner during the picking, is he wanted to skip out on game 4, and then if he had, because there was an odd number of contestants. So if he had skipped out on game 4, he would have just had the guards tell them that they had executed him because he was odd man out. But because he got picked, he had to do the whole thing with the, oh, I'm tricking you, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm tricking you into thinking I have dementia, blah, 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 blah. And again, it gave him a chance to emotionally torture 4, 5, 6, which is what he wanted to do. Right? And then the final, the final game is just how capitalism is a game of King of the Hill. In the end, the goal is for there to just be one winner who has all the money. And what pisses him off is that 4, 5, 6 doesn't take the money and doesn't do anything with the money. He literally has the bank call him to ask, why aren't you trying to use the money to make more money? The whole point of all of this is just to amass as much money as possible. So why aren't you doing that? And that's why he brings him in for the final game between the two of them about whether he's 4, 5, 6 wants to believe he can be a good person, and if he starts using the money, he has to admit the things he did to get it, right? And that all of the horror he was part of. And as you can see, 001 is epically pissed about this, because that's not, you're supposed to just accept that you're the winner, accept that you're the lucky one, and enjoy it. Because in the end of the day, let's face it, under capitalism, it's mostly luck, whether you win or not. It has very little to do with skill. There's some skill, mostly luck. Anyway, I guess that's my reaction to Think Story's terrible video. I honestly, right up until the end, thought he was just going to go, psych, of course I don't think this demands a monster. And I know he only did this to get attention for having the worst Squid Game take. And now I'm doing it. Why am I doing this? I can't get attention by just saying he's got the worst take. Everyone said that. I might be going so crazy from making 6 videos about House of Ashes that I just need a distraction. Well, let's post the distraction. I've been the Hidden Object Guru. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you back here for more videos. Who the hell knows what they're going to be about? But until then, au revoir.